You know, when we renovated our porch, I say renovated, the house is new, but you know, we kind of looked at what we had and we said, I love those, like that historic downtown feel. So we did some market research. We walked around, we looked at all the porches. Of course, this was one of those that we kind of studied and looked at. What would you say makes this an iconic Saratoga porch? Welcome to afternoon tea at Pantry Hill. Join us over a cup or two as we work together to create home.
Step by step, down the path we made.
Our front porch has always been an extension of our home, and even more so since the remodel. Just like inside, my top priorities out here when we're entertaining are making sure that our guests are comfortable, that everyone is well fed, and that we're all having fun. When hosting outside, we make a few accommodations. First of all, the food has to be easy. So we do casual appetizers, easy self-serve drinks, and we have a couple of coolers set out, one for adult beverages and one for the kids. One of the best additions to our front porch has been this garden table behind me. We picked it up from Facebook Marketplace and I painted it to match the front porch, and that's where we set out all of our food and drink when we're hosting out here. Back to making everyone comfortable. We love our rockers here and they have become a staple on our front porch, and I was lucky enough to inherit those from my great aunt. We set out quilts for our guests to throw out onto the lawn or to curl up with on the porch swing. Our parties tend to spill out onto the lawn, so we put lawn games out there and we put a fire pit out there, but we keep it all close to the porch. Two more things. Don't forget the bug spray, and make sure you have a well-curated playlist. The music really sets the tone. For me, the front porch has always been a place of significance. My parents' first home had a small porch with just enough space for my mom's antique wicker chair. That's where we find her with iced tea in the summer, where we took our first day of school and holiday photos. When I was 11, my parents built the home they currently live in. During construction, I loved sitting in on those design conversations, and one of the things that specifically sticks out in my mind is how excited my mom was for a big wraparound porch. Here at Pantry Hill, the front porch is where we start the day. In our pajamas, on the swing. It's where we sit wrapped in blankets when we're not feeling well and we need a little sunshine, or when we simply need a break. It's where we end the week when we gather with our neighbors, where we celebrate holidays and mark milestones. Recently, Beth Gregg, the founder of Claverton Cloches, who we featured in Chapter 4, surprised me on her visit to Pantry Hill when she said she saw front porches as a uniquely American architectural concept, which got me thinking about the rich porch culture we have here in Saratoga Springs. What makes them so uniquely American? Why are they such a feature of our city, and what exactly makes for an iconic porch? So I sat down over a cup of tea with Amy Smith, the owner and proprietor of the Saratoga Arms Hotel. Here, cheers.
Cheers. I don't know which one's an English breakfast and one is a Saratoga red chai.
Ooh, the red chai I love.
I think that's
English breakfast. I also got that.
Yep, I think that's it. So
good stuff. Tell me a little bit about the history of the Saratoga Arms.
The hotel was actually built in 1870. It was built as more of a modest hotel, up against the larger hotels, the United States Hotel or the Grand Union Hotels, just 2 blocks south of us.
So the heyday of Saratoga Springs,
yes.
Kind of that Victorian era.
It feels like everything was built in Saratoga in the 1870s.
Right.
I think that's where it was all started. And then in the mid-1900s became a boarding house.
Okay.
I would say actually a flop house when in 1997 my folks decided to bring it back into its heyday of a hotel.
The porch wasn't built as like the Grand Union or the Adelphi or like those massive, buildings, but I can imagine, it had to have been pretty celebratory. You're right on the street.
I did a little chatting with our local historian when we talked a little bit about what porches meant to Saratogians and how they came to be. And he said that the folks that came from the South and summered in Saratoga, they did that to get out of the heat.
Yeah.
But even being in Saratoga, you're not in 40-degree weather in the summertime, right? So he said they would mimic or replicate their porches in the
that's
South.
So interesting.
To come up.
Because there is
like
that connection. You notice that kind of
Exactly.
like aesthetic connection, and there really is like that porch culture here, like you see in the South.
And The other thing he said, not only did they do that to get out of the heat, but it was a place for them to gossip about other people. So why wouldn't any porch, even I can see in 1870, 1880, people talking about so-and-so and who's in town
and who's wearing what, right?
Exactly.
Like as they're walking down the street, because, even now, I think it's a little bit like there's less of an aesthetic show in our clothing as there was during like the Victorian times, especially here. People would come up from the city to see and be seen, right?
Course.
And so it was all about their outfits, but you're right across the street from the hat shop.
That's right.
And so it is like, there is kind of that element of like, let's see what people are wearing. That's one of my favorite parts of racing season.
Oh, well, that happens, right? You always go, you want to buy your best fascinator to go with the new dress.
And you're yelling over the porch railing, where did you get that? Like, I love it. When I'm coming into town, I'm coming from this direction. So I always come right around the corner, and this porch has just been, one of the staples, I would say, of my memories of downtown Saratoga Springs and coming through here.
Thank you. When we actually renovated this property, this had a front porch. It actually had a first floor porch and a second floor porch.
Oh, wow.
So the original porch was very narrow. You look at old pictures, it was like benches were all the way across like this. We wanted it to be more conversational, so we doubled the width of our porch.
Right.
So we were able to have people have conversations across the porch, not necessarily right next to each other.
Right. When we renovated our porch, I say renovated, the house is new, but, we kind of looked at what we had and we said, I love those, like that historic kind of downtown feel. So we did some market research. We walked around, we looked at all the porches. Of course, this was one of those that we kind of studied and looked at. What would you say makes this an iconic Saratoga porch?
Couple things. One is it is the width of it.
Okay.
It is also the type of furniture that you put on it. We have these wicker chairs and wicker settees. The high ceilings, so you don't feel like you're closed in. And then it is the ability to have you looking out onto the world.
Yeah. So when you were renovating this porch, you said you expanded the size. What were some of the other kind of historic Saratoga details that you added?
Well, it's a wood floor, so this is a beautiful mahogany floor that we took the better part of this past month, rehabbing it.
That was one of the check marks on our list as we were walking through town studying these porches, the mahogany. We actually started with a cement slab, like you would see in kind of like a spec house, and we built this frame around it and added the mahogany. So that was.
And we started with a steel frame. So is that I think that's the difference between commercial and residential.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily have it, but we have wonderful lighting. But there's also, I don't know if you have one on your porch, but a ceiling fan.
Yes, we do. So that was the other thing that we added that we did not have before. So we added the ceiling fans and we added lanterns.
Yes.
To kind of give that ambient lighting all the way down.
That's right.
As well as the beadboard on the ceiling, which is what I see
you
here.
like that up there as well.
So we kind of added all of those, and it pulls you in. It just feels cozier. It feels homier. Place where you want to put your feet up.
It's sort of an extension of the inside coming out, right?
Completely, and that actually is what it feels like, right? And that's how we start to design the porch outside, thinking of it almost like the room's inside, like you said, with the wicker and seating for everyone, and kind of like thinking about how we're going to organize it in a way that allows for entertaining.
That's exactly right.
So, and we're in the country, so we're not necessarily having someone on the sidewalk stepping up all of the time, but we have created this awesome kind of community with our neighbors. And so on a Friday night, it is not uncommon for someone to say, hey, we just sat down on the front porch with cocktails. Who wants to join us? And all of a sudden, we're a party of 20. Little by little over the years, we've added the same charm to our front porch that we have to our interiors. Features that call people to sit, to stay, and to gather. The front porch is an extension of our home, one without walls, where indoors meets out and friends become family.
Open the door, come inside from the window.
Thank you for joining us for afternoon tea. We hope you'll take some time to enjoy your home this week. If you'd like exclusive content from this episode, be sure to subscribe to my Substack.